I found out my parents had left me exactly $1 on a Tuesday, so ordinary it should have slipped out of my memory. I was at the break room sink at work, rinsing out a cracked mug with a faded logo, while the cheap office coffee machine made its usual dying animal noises behind me. That's when my phone buzzed. It was my brother, Daniel. No hello, no how are you, not even a sad face emoji about our dead parents. Just, the lawyer wants us both there at 3. Don't be late. I stared at those words while a thin line of coffee overflowed the mug and ran down the drain. It had been 3 months since Mom's funeral. A year since Dad's heart attack. I'd been bracing for this meeting without admitting it to myself. The will. The final judgment. The last time my parents would be able to decide what I was worth. I texted back, "I'll be there," and my thumb hovered, wanting to add something petty like, "Can you send me the address?" Since I wasn't included in any real planning, might as well start now. Instead, I deleted it and put my phone away. That's what I always did. Edited myself. Smoothed over the edges. At 2:30, I left work early, telling my boss there was a family legal thing. She gave me a sympathetic look and didn't ask questions. I took the bus across town, watching raindrops smear the windows into long gray streaks. The city slid by in that muted Seattle way. Coffee shops, bookstores, people in dark coats hurrying under umbrellas. I sat there with my spine straight, hands folded tight in my lap, trying not to rehearse imaginary conversations with my dead parents. The law office was in an old brick building that smelled like leather, dust, and money. The kind of place where people wore expensive regrets and called them estates. The receptionist smiled with professional pity and showed me into a conference room. Daniel was already there, of course. He always arrived in the middle of things, like he'd been born in the center of the picture. He was leaning back in a leather chair, scrolling on his phone, one ankle crossed over his knee. He was wearing Dad's watch. My stomach clenched at the sight of it. That watch had been Dad's talisman, his favorite toy. He'd polish it after dinner sometimes, humming under his breath. When I was little, I used to sit at the table and watch the light catch the metal and think one day that will be mine too. I should have known better. "Hey," I said. Came out small. Daniel glanced up. "Oh, you made it." Like he was mildly impressed I'd figured out how to navigate public transportation. I took the chair opposite him. The lawyer, a tall man with silver hair and kind eyes that had probably watched 1,000 families crack open in this room, settled at the head of the table. He shuffled some papers. "Thank you both for coming," he said. "First, let me say I'm sorry for your loss." Daniel gave a tight nod. I just stared at the table. Sorry for your loss. Loss implies something you once had. The lawyer cleared his throat. Your parents updated their will 2 years ago. Today we're here to finalize the reading and sign the last transfer documents. 2 years ago. That detail would matter later, but in that moment it slid past me like water. He began with formal language. Names. Dates. Legal phrases that sounded like a foreign language dressed in a business suit. Then he got to the part that mattered. To our beloved son, Daniel Carter, we leave the family home and all property contained therein, as well as any remaining balances in our joint savings accounts. My ears started ringing. The family home. All property contained therein. The savings. I pictured the house, the white 2-story on Maple Drive with the peeling porch and the hydrangeas Mom loved. I pictured the kitchen table where I'd done homework and cried and bandaged my scraped knees. I pictured the upstairs bedroom where I'd lain awake as a teenager, listening to everyone else's needs come first. And then I pictured Daniel, feet on the coffee table, remote in hand, changing the channel whenever anyone talked for too long. To our daughter, Anna Carter, the lawyer continued, we leave $1. I actually thought I misheard him. I'm sorry, I said. What? He cleared his throat again, visibly uncomfortable. Your parents will states that you are to receive $1. He slid a crisp bill across the table like we were in some absurd game show. Legally, this is often done to avoid disputes by acknowledging the person, but my chair scraped loudly against the floor as I stood up. $1, I repeated. Daniel was smirking now, his eyes fixed on his phone like this was a mildly boring TV episode. It's not about the amount, he said. You didn't even want the house. You said so. Remember. I did remember. I remembered being 22 and exhausted from working 2 jobs, saying, I don't want to be stuck in that house my whole life like Mom. I hadn't known they'd take that as erase me. The lawyer tapped a paper. There is also a letter addressed to you, Ms. Carter. From your mother. My pulse hammered in my ears. He handed it over. My name, Anna, was written in Mom's neat cursive. My hand shook as I opened it. The letter was short. Painfully short. Anna, you've always been so strong. You never asked us for anything. Daniel has a family to care for and needs more stability. We know you understand. This felt like the fairest way. We love you. Don't be upset. You'll land on your feet like you always do. Love, Mom. No mention of the times I needed them and bit my tongue. No mention of the nights I'd called and hung up when she sounded too busy. No mention of how often I had been their unpaid babysitter, housekeeper, emotional therapist. Strong. Didn't ask. We'll understand. A neat little story to excuse what they'd done. I folded the letter carefully, each crease sharp like I was slicing something inside myself. Then I looked at Daniel. Congratulations, I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. It sounded like someone else's older sister in a movie, calm, resigned, already fading into the background. You got what you always wanted. He shrugged, eyes unbothered. Don't be like that. You're the independent one. You don't even like this house. It made sense. The lawyer shifted awkwardly. I can assure you this was their fully informed, signed decision. You do have the right to contest, but given the structure, I'm not contesting, I said automatically. The idea of begging the legal system to acknowledge my worth when my parents hadn't? No. Something in me refused. I tucked the letter and the ridiculous dollar into my bag like evidence from a crime scene and walked toward the door. Thanks for your time, I told the lawyer, because even in that moment I couldn't stop being polite. When I stepped outside, the air felt colder than it should have been. I stood on the sidewalk outside the office building, watching people go by with coffee cups and shopping bags, and felt like I was on the wrong side of thick glass. Everyone else's lives moved forward. Mine had just quietly been declareless. That night, sleep didn't come. Every time I closed my eyes, my brain played highlight reels I hadn't asked for. Me at 6, handing Daniel the bigger slice of cake because he's a growing boy. Me at 10, cleaning up his Lego explosion because you're the helpful one, Anna. Me at 14, staying home from a school trip to babysit him while Mom and Dad went to a couples retreat. At 16, watching them clap the loudest when he got his first car, a shiny used truck, and saying nothing when my car fund turned into a wheel C. At 18, packing my bags for a dorm room paid mostly by loans and part-time jobs, while they told me I was so brave going out there on your own. 22, sitting with Mom at the kitchen table, telling her I didn't want to get stuck in this town, that I wanted to build my own life. Watching her nod distractedly, already thinking ahead to Daniel's college choices. My pillow got wet and cold from tears I didn't even realize were falling. My phone lit up once, a text from Daniel. Don't make this weird. They did what they thought was best. Let it go. I put the phone face down and laughed in the dark. Cracked, humorless sound. Let it go. Course that's what he wanted. Letting it go had always benefited him. The next morning I drove to Maple Drive. I told myself I was going for closure. Really, I think I wanted to prove to myself that the house wasn't alive, didn't breathe, didn't care who owned it. The front yard was already different. The for sale sign had been removed. Daniel's truck was parked in the driveway. The hydrangeas by the porch looked half dead, like they were mourning too. The front door was unlocked, which annoyed me on a level I didn't know existed. That door had been locked every night of my childhood at exactly 9 p.m. sharp. "We're not animals," Dad used to say. But I walked in now like I was breaking into a memory. The smell hit me first. Lemon cleaner, old wood, a faint undertone of laundry detergent. My whole body flinched. The entryway table was still there, the one where Mom kept a bowl for keys and a framed family photo from when I was 12 and Daniel was 8. In the picture, my hand was on his shoulder. I wondered how many times I'd stood in that exact spot, waiting to absorb some new responsibility. "If you're here for furniture, you should have called first," Daniel's voice floated from the stairs. He appeared at the top, in sweatpants and a t-shirt, barefoot, hair a mess like he'd just woken up from a nap in our father's armchair. His armchair now, I supposed. Title made me nauseous. "I'm not here for furniture," I said. "I came to say goodbye." He frowned, confused. "Goodbye to what? You act like I exiled you." "You kind of did," I said. "You just used Mom and Dad's pens to do it." He rolled his eyes. "Drama queen. You haven't lived here in 10 years. You moved away first. Why do you even care?" The anger that rose in me wasn't loud. It was cold. Clear. Like ice spreading across a lake. "I care," I said slowly, "because they didn't just give you a building. They rewrote our whole childhood on paper." He blinked. "What?" "The house, the savings, their things. It's all a story. A story where you were the protagonist. I was a footnote." I walked into the living room. The brown leather couch sagged in the middle exactly like it always had. Coffee table still had the little scratch where I dropped a bowl when I was 13 and cried for an hour, terrified Dad would yell. He hadn't. He just sighed and said, "At least it wasn't Daniel's stuff. Funny how you remember things differently when you know the ending." Daniel followed me. "They loved you too," he said. "They put that in the letter." I turned. They loved the idea of me. The helpful daughter. The strong one. The one who never asked for anything. Loving a version of me that made their lives easier is not the same as loving me. "What did you want?" he snapped. "To split everything 50-50? For me to end up in an apartment with 2 kids while you get a big house you don't even want?" His words had that familiar whine, the assumption that any shift away from his comfort meant injustice. "I wanted," I said, feeling my voice tremble, "to matter. To be considered. To not be deliberately written out of the story of this family like I was just passing through." He opened his mouth, then shut it again. For a moment, something like guilt softened his expression. Then it hardened. "Well, you can't change it now," he muttered. "They're gone. This is what they wanted." I looked around one last time. The framed cross-stitch Mom bought at some church bazaar. The dent in the doorway from when Daniel had thrown a ball inside after being told not to. The quiet shadow of the hallway where I'd hidden with books when the house felt too loud. None of it felt like mine anymore. Maybe it never had. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Mrs. Lopez, our next-door neighbor. "Mija, if you are at the house, come have coffee. I made pan dulce. You look like you need sugar." I almost smiled. Even my grief had witnesses I hadn't expected. "I'm going next door," I told Daniel. "In case you're worried, I'll steal a lamp." "Don't be petty," he called after me. But his voice sounded unsure. Mrs. Lopez's kitchen had always felt more like home than my own. When I was little, she'd sneak me warm tortillas with butter when Mom was on a diet kick and the whole house smelled like boiled vegetables and resentment. Now, the moment I stepped in, the scent of cinnamon and baking dough wrapped around me like a blanket. Sit," she said, bustling around in her floral apron. "You look like a ghost." I sank into the same chair I'd sat in 100 times growing up, the one with a loose screw that squeaked if you leaned back too far. She set a mug of coffee in front of me and a plate of pan dulce. It was only then I realized I hadn't eaten since breakfast. My hands were shaking so badly the cup clinked against the saucer. She watched me for a moment, then reached out and patted my wrist. "They read the will," she said. It wasn't a question. News traveled fast on Maple Drive. "Yes," I said. "Daniel got the house." She took a sip of her own coffee. "And you." I let out a breath that felt like it had been trapped in my chest for years. "I got $1. Her eyes flashed with something fierce. $1. And a letter, I added, saying I'm strong, that I'll understand, that Daniel needs the house more because he has a family. She made a sound that was half scoff, half growl. He is a big boy with 2 hands. He can work. You are their daughter just the same. My throat tightened. I keep thinking maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe it's not about me as a person, maybe it's just logistics like he keeps saying. Mrs. Lopez gave me a look so sharp it sliced through that thought. "Listen to me," she said. "I watched you grow up in that house. I watched you carry grocery bags bigger than you. I watched you walk Daniel to the bus stop in the rain while your parents slept in. I watched you mow the lawn while he played video games. If anyone deserved that house, it was you." Tears blurred my vision. "They said I never asked for anything," I whispered. "Is it my fault? If I'd complained more," cried louder, "would it be different?" She shook her head slowly. "Mija, there are 2 kinds of children in many families. The one who screams and the one who swallows. The screamers get attention. The swallowers get taken for granted." "I was a swallower," I said bitterly. "You were a survivor," she corrected. "Your parents understood one thing about you that you could endure. They turned that into an excuse to give you less." I thought about that for a long moment. My endurance, my quiet, my badge of honor turned into a reason to neglect me. "What do I do?" I finally asked. She shrugged. "First you eat. No good decisions are made hungry." I laughed wetly and broke off a piece of sweet bread. The sugar clung to my fingers. "After that," she sat back, considering. "After that, you decide if you want to keep standing at the same door waiting for people who have shown you they will not open it. Or you walk away and build your own door." I swallowed the warm bread, my chest aching. "I don't want their house anymore," I admitted. Saying it out loud surprised me. "Good," she said. "It is full of ghosts and dust and old stories where you are always in the background. You need a new story." Her words lodged themselves somewhere deep. Later that day, when I finally went back to my tiny apartment with its secondhand furniture and thrift store dishes, it didn't feel as inadequate as it had the day before. It felt like mine. The peeling paint by the windows? Mine. The squeaky floorboard near the bathroom? Also mine. They were flaws I hadn't inherited. They were choices I'd made with my own money, my own effort. That night, I did something that felt both ridiculous and necessary. I took the $1 bill out of my bag and taped it to the inside of my closet door. Not as a shrine. As a reminder. A receipt. Proof of what my parents had thought I was worth in material terms. Every time I opened that door, I wanted to remember, this is what they gave you. You will build more than this. Then I opened my laptop, typed "how to contest a will" into the search bar, and fell down a rabbit hole of legal jargon. Hourly rates that made my stomach twist. Stories of siblings torn apart for years. Articles that all boiled down to one blunt line. Unless clear mental incapacity or coercion can be proven, emotional unfairness is not usually grounds for overturning a will. 2 years ago. The lawyer had said they signed the updated will 2 years ago. That was before Dad's heart started failing. Before Mom's diagnosis hollowed her cheeks. They'd been of sound mind as far as the law was concerned. They hadn't made a mistake. They had made a decision. I closed the tabs and stared at my reflection in the black laptop screen. My eyes looked tired. Older than my 28 years. "I'm not going to beg them from beyond the grave," I whispered. Saying it out loud made my shoulders drop with a strange, heavy relief. Life didn't stop for my grief. That was almost the cruelest part. The next week, my boss still needed the Peterson campaign finished. Rent was still due. The little grocery store on the corner still rearranged their apples into perfect pyramids every morning like the world hadn't shifted on its axis. At work, people tiptoed around me, offering sympathetic looks but not prying. Except for Leah, the copywriter who sat across from me. She plopped a donut on my desk one morning without a word. I eyed it. "What's this for?" "Protein," she said. "And sugar. And grief. And rage. It's a multi-purpose donut." I snorted. "I don't think the FDA approves that label." "The FDA can fight me," she said. "You looked like you were about to cry over that banner ad for dog food." I stared at my screen. The banner did show a golden retriever with big, trusting eyes. It almost worked. "They left me $1, I blurted. Leah blinked. "Your parents?" "In their will," I said. "My brother got the house. The savings. Everything." I got legally acknowledged. I waited for her to tell me I was overreacting. Or to say something like, "At least they left you something." Instead, she leaned back, whistled low, and said, "That's messed up." The simple, clear response made my throat tighten. "They said I'm strong," I continued, voice cracking. "That I'll understand someday. That Daniel needs stability because he has a family." Leah made a face. "Yeah, nothing says stability like screwing over your other kid." "He says I'm making it about favoritism," I whispered. "Is it? Am I just jealous?" She stared at me like I'd grown an extra head. "If your parents hacked your leg off and told you to be grateful at least you still had one, would you call that favoritism or mutilation?" I choked on a laugh. "Bit dramatic." "I'm a copywriter," she said. "Drama is my job." "But seriously, Anna, you're not crazy. You're reacting like a human being whose family just put their emotional math into legal ink." Her validation settled into me like warm tea. That night in therapy, I laid it all out for Dr. Lee. I'd started seeing her after Dad died, when my anxiety kept showing up as chest pain and my doctor gently suggested the problem wasn't my heart but everything around it. Now, sitting on her gray couch while the sound machine hummed softly in the corner, I recounted the will, the letter, the $1 inheritance, the house. "It feels stupid to be this hurt over money," I confessed. "I've always told myself I don't care about stuff. That I'd rather have peace than property." "This isn't about money," Dr. Lee said, tilting her head. "It's about what the money represents." "Which is?" "Value," she said. "Recognition. Acknowledgement. Inclusion." When your parents structured their will this way, they didn't just allocate assets. They ranked their children. Hearing it put that plainly made my eyes burn. "I keep thinking about all the times they called me mature and self-sufficient," I said. It felt like praise. Now it feels like justification. "Forgiving you less," Dr. Lee nodded. "Yes. They turned your strengths into permission to neglect your needs." "Is that my fault?" I asked. "For being good at coping?" "Is it a child's fault?" she countered. "For learning how to survive with the tools they're given?" I rubbed my hands against my jeans. "So what now? I can't change the will. They're dead. I can't confront them." "You can decide what story you keep telling yourself," she said. "Right now, your parents' story is Daniel needs more, Anna needs less. You can keep living inside that story. Or I write my own," I finished quietly. The idea scared me. Writing my own story meant stepping out of every role they'd scripted for me, the strong one, quiet one, the always there one. But another part of me, a small, stubborn spark that had kept me going through underpaid jobs, cramped apartments, and being the invisible sibling, felt curious. What would my life look like if I stopped centering people who didn't center me? A few days later, an email pinged into my inbox. Subject line: estate tax assessment. It was from a man named Mark who worked with the lawyer. He politely requested some information about family history and mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that Daniel had officially transferred the house into his name. Seeing it written like that made my stomach twist. Not because I wanted the house, but because it made the loss concrete. Final. But tucked at the end of the email was something else. If you have any questions or need clarification on the documents, you are absolutely entitled to understand the full scope of your parents' decisions. Titled to understand. The phrase stuck with me. No one in my family had ever framed my curiosity as a right. It had always been an inconvenience. That night, instead of ignoring the email like part of me wanted to, I replied. I asked exactly when my parents had changed the will. What else had been in the initial draft? Whether I'd ever been included more equally. Mark responded within a day. The will had been updated 2 years ago. The original version, drafted when we were teenagers, had split things closer to equally, the house to be sold and proceeds divided, savings shared, sentimental items negotiated. 2 years ago, my parents had gone back and taken a red pen to that balance. They had crossed my name off certain lines and written Daniel's instead. My entire body went cold. 2 years ago, I'd been here in this same city, barely making rent, working late. 2 years ago, Daniel's wife was pregnant. I remembered Mom calling me, ecstatic about being a grandma, talking for 40 minutes straight without once asking how I was doing. 2 years ago, they hadn't been under duress or confused. They had been planning. They looked at their children and decided one of us deserved assets and the other deserved admiration from a distance. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark, listening to my upstairs neighbor's TV through the ceiling. Commercial jingle about family insurance floated down, syrupy and false. I am not a footnote, I whispered into the dim room, saying it didn't magically fix anything. But it was a start. The next time Daniel texted, it wasn't about the will. It was about a barbecue. Housewarming at the old place this Saturday. Bring chips or something. No, please. No, are you up for it? Just an assumption that of course I'd come celebrate his victory lap in the arena of parental approval. I stared at the message for a full minute, then typed back, "No thanks. I'm busy." I wasn't. Not in the traditional sense. My only plans involved laundry and maybe finally fixing the wobbly leg on my coffee table. But I was busy in a different way, busy not betraying myself. My phone buzzed again. "Don't be childish," he wrote. "They wouldn't want you to hold a grudge." Anger flared, hot and sudden. For a moment, I imagined driving over there, standing in the middle of the living room while he grilled hot dogs in the backyard, and reading Mom's letter out loud to every guest. I imagined pointing to the walls and saying, "Welcome to the Museum of Favoritism. Over here you'll see the spot where they decided I was strong enough to survive their neglect." Instead, I tossed my phone onto the couch and went for a walk. It was drizzling because of course it was. The sidewalks glistened. Couples hurried past with shared umbrellas. Teenagers laughed too loudly outside a boba shop. I walked until my legs ached in that satisfying physical way that had nothing to do with emotional pain. When I got back, there was another message from Daniel, a photo. The old backyard, filled with people and fairy lights. He stood on the porch, beer in hand, one arm slung around Jenna, the other holding his baby daughter, Ava. Caption: "We're making new memories. You're missing out." Something in me softened and hardened at the same time. Ava's chubby face, smiling without knowing any of this history, tugged at my heart. None of this was her fault. But I also recognized the manipulation in those 4 words. You're missing out. The implication: the problem is you, not the situation. I typed slowly, "I'm glad you're happy. I'm not missing out. I'm choosing myself." He didn't respond. In therapy, I told Dr. Lee about the text, the barbecue, my choice to stay home. "Does it make me petty?" I asked. "To skip it. Does it feel petty?" she asked back. I thought about the note in my closet, the $1 bill taped to the door. I thought about all the times I'd shown up for family events while my needs sat in the trunk of my car, unattended. No, I said. It feels like refusing to participate in my own erasure. That sounds less like pettiness and more like self-respect, she said. You're allowed to opt out of spaces where you are not valued. A month after the will reading, a strange thing happened. My world didn't end. The grief came in waves, sure. Some nights I still lay awake wondering if there was a version of this story where I confronted my parents before it was too late, where I sat them down and said, I know you love me, but you are loving me wrong. But most days life trickled on. I went to work. I budgeted. I cooked simple meals in my tiny kitchen. I met Leah for coffee. I saw Mrs. Lopez on Sundays. And slowly, an idea began to take shape in the back of my mind. Started as a whisper. A silly thought. What if I owned a house one day? Not theirs, not in Maple Drive, but something small and mine. The idea felt outrageous at first. I was a single woman with an average salary and student loans. The math didn't exactly scream future homeowner. But the more I sat with it, the less impossible it felt and the more symbolic. For most of my life, home had meant the place where I proved my usefulness, where my value was measured in chores completed and crises averted. What if home could mean something else? Safety chosen by me. Comfort built by me. Walls that didn't remember every time I'd been overlooked. I started small. I met with a financial advisor at the bank, hands sweating as I handed over my crumpled spreadsheets. She was kind, practical, and surprisingly unjudgmental. You're not as far off as you think, she said, tracing numbers with her pen. If you keep saving like this, increase your income a bit, maybe with more freelance design work, you could qualify for a modest mortgage in a couple of years. Couple of years. Sounded like forever and also like tomorrow. That night, I opened a new savings account and labeled it something that made my heart flutter. My house. Not a house. Not the house I deserve instead of Daniel. Just mine. Every time I transferred even $20 into it, I felt like I was casting a tiny vote for myself. The turning point with Daniel came on a random Thursday, about a year after the will reading. I was at my desk, half focused on a layout, when my phone buzzed. A photo again, this time of the Maple Drive house with a big for sale sign planted in the yard. Underneath, we're moving. Thought you should know. My heart did a strange flip. A mix of sadness, relief, and something like vindication. Where to? I wrote back. New development across town. Bigger place. Jenna wants a pool. Market's good right now. Figured we should cash out while the house still has nostalgia value for buyers. Nostalgia value. The phrase stung. I stared at the picture of our childhood home, now just a commodity to flip. Through a minute, another text came. If you want to come by and take anything before we clear it out, you can. Mom's old stuff, whatever. I know you were weird about it last time. I could almost hear his tone, annoyed but trying to sound benevolent. Old habits tugged at me. The urge to smooth things over, to grab onto any crumb of consideration and build a feast out of it. But I wasn't the same Anna who had walked into that lawyer's office a year ago. I looked at the photo, then at the plant on my windowsill that I'd somehow kept alive for 6 months. At the spreadsheet open on my laptop with my Growing My House fund. At the sticky note on my monitor where Leah had written in Sharpie, "You are not optional." Then I typed, "No thanks. I don't need anything from that house." A long pause. Then, "Not even your old room stuff? Beds, shelves, whatever. Would save you money." I smiled, a small private thing. "I'm working on a future where my furniture doesn't come with strings," I wrote. "Good luck with the sale." He didn't reply. Maybe he was offended. Maybe he was confused. Maybe a tiny part of him understood. I'll probably never really know. A few months later, I got pre-approved for a mortgage. I cried in my car in the bank parking lot, clutching the printout like it was a golden ticket. Not because the numbers were huge, they weren't, but because they were mine. Proof that my future didn't have to be limited by the story my parents had written in their will. The house I eventually found wasn't glamorous. It was a small, slightly crooked craftsman on a quiet street with overgrown bushes and a porch that needed sanding. Kitchen tile was dated. The bathroom had ugly beige fixtures. But when I walked through it the first time, sunlight pooling on the scuffed hardwood floors, I felt something deep in my chest unclench. There were no ghosts in those rooms. No memory of slammed doors or whispered comparisons. Just walls and floors and a roof waiting for a story. My story. The realtor watched my face. "You like it?" she asked. I laughed, wiping at my cheeks. "It feels possible," I said. "Like a place I could grow into instead of shrink inside of." "That's a good sign," she smiled. "Houses should feel like that." When I closed, I didn't call Daniel. I didn't send a photo of the keys. The person I texted instead was Mrs. Lopez. "I got my own place," I wrote. "Not theirs. Mine." She replied with 17 heart emojis and, "I make tamales for the house blessing." The first night I slept there, the house creaked and sighed in unfamiliar ways. Every sound was a question mark. But I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, and for once the voice in my head wasn't asking, "What did I do wrong?" It was whispering, "You did this. You chose this. You deserve this." A week later, as I hung a simple framed print in the hallway, I thought about that $1 bill still taped inside my old closet door in my apartment. Before I moved, I'd taken it down and tucked it into a journal. I pulled it out now, smoothing its worn edges. I thought about burning it, about flushing it, about mailing it to Daniel with a note. "You can have this too, since you seem to need everything." Instead, I pinned it to a corkboard in my tiny new office nook, next to receipts for paint and a scribbled list of future projects. Fix porch, plant herbs, maybe adopt a cat. Not as a wound. As a monument. A reminder of the starting point, not the ending. I didn't need my parents' money. I didn't need their house. What I had needed all along was something they never thought to put in writing, the right to define my own worth. Standing there in my imperfect, hopeful little house, I realized something that settled into me like a final puzzle piece. They left my brother the house. They left me $1. But I was the one who walked away with something they never truly had, the willingness to look at an ugly truth and build something honest from it. My inheritance wasn't a building on Maple Drive. It was the knowledge that I could survive being chosen last and still choose myself first. In the end, that $1 became the cheapest, harshest lesson I ever received. And somehow, in spite of everything, it paid for the life I was finally beginning to live.